Hi there. In critical care and emergency settings, we deal with the patients who are suffering with life threatening issues. Rapid detection of these issues is very crucial to start the time sensitive and goal directed management. Patients often comes with a state of circulatory failure and we are not sure the reason for this hemodynamic shock. Therefore, we need a tool which is non-invasive, can be used at bedside, easy to use, and gives us rapid diagnosis. Ultrasound is such a tool in the hands of critical care and emergency physician. In this video, I would like to teach all of you how to examine the patients using bedside ultrasound with various probes and how to guide our hemodynamic management based on sono assessment.
So we follow a peculiar ultrasound protocol known as FAST protocol and also a few basic echocardiographic assessments. The FAST protocol was devised by Professor Daniel Lichtenstein in 2012, and this protocol was proposed for the management of unexplained shock in ICU or emergency department. Now, the first step in this protocol is to rule out the obstructive shock. There are three main causes of obstructive shock: cardiac tamponade, pulmonary embolism, and the tension pneumothorax. Cardiac tamponade is a critical condition that occurs after sudden and or excessive accumulation of fluid in the pericardial space that restricts the appropriate filling of the cardiac chambers. To find the cardiac tamponade in emergency settings, the probe which we use is the cardiac probe. The probe is first placed at the left parasternal window with the transducer index mark pointed towards the patient's right shoulder in 10 o'clock position at the third or fourth intercostal space, and the view is often called the parasternal long axis view of the heart. At the end diastole, echo-free space between the pericardial layers can be measured along the posterior wall of the left ventricle. M-mode echocardiography in the parasternal long axis view shows an echo-free space throughout between the visceral and the parietal layer of pericardium, and this sign is only seen in the systole in case of where the effusion is mild, the pericardial effusion is mild. But if you see the pericardial effusion, if you see this sign during the complete cycle, means this systole as well as diastole, then the effusion will be at least moderate to severe or a profound effusion. Then the probe is placed just inferior to the xiphoid process. The image marker is towards the patient's left side, and the sound beam is angled slightly anterior to get the subcostal four-chamber view. A subcostal view is very commonly used to examine the pericardial tamponade, but it is important to know that depending on the angle of the probe, it is easy to overestimate the size of effusion. Now, a common sign of cardiac tamponade with significant hemodynamic compromise is the collapse of RV and RV. The collapse of the RV pre-wall will only be seen during the expiratory phase of the respiration, but as collapse of the RV progresses, the detection is possible throughout the whole respiratory cycle, that is respiration, expiration as well as inspiration. The duration of collapse of the RV pre-wall is an indicator of the severity. An important sign of the tamponade seen in 2D echocardiography is the dilatation of the IVC, that is inferior vena cava, and hepatic veins. This is known as IVC plethora, and although not very specific, it is very sensitive sign of cardiac tamponade. A decrease of the physiological collapsibility of the IVC during inspiration is commonly observed sign. Now, second cause of obstructive shock is the pulmonary embolism. The detection of right ventricle is very important to find out the pulmonary embolism, which increases the pressure in the right ventricle, and then right ventricle get dilated. So in a crashing patient, if we find the right ventricular dilatation on echocardiography, that could be the indirect sign of the pulmonary embolism. Now, two echo views are commonly used in for this purpose: apical four-chamber view and the parasternal short axis view. Echo findings include the McConnell sign, enlarged right ventricle, IV septum flattening, D-shaped left ventricle, decreased TAPC, and 60-60 sign. The McConnell sign is a distinct echocardiographic feature of acute massive pulmonary embolism. It is defined as a regional pattern of right ventricular dysfunction with akinesia of the mid-free wall and hypercontractility of the apical wall. Tricuspid annular plane systolic excursion, known as TAPSE, refers to the displacement of the tricuspid valvular plane in the Z direction, reflecting right ventricular longitudinal contraction or apex to base shortening. Now, the TAPSE values are very important, which are taken in the M mode. Now, TAPSE less than 17 millimeter indicates that the right ventricular systolic dysfunction is present. Now, in various studies, the TAPSE has been proposed as an ideal echocardiographic marker of right ventricular dysfunction. TAPSE as a prognostic tool in patients with pulmonary embolism. Now, if cardiac window is suboptimal, if you cannot look at the heart through the cardiac windows, as I already described in the apical four-chamber view or in the parasternal view or a short axis view, then you have to use the blue protocol. The blue protocol incorporates the lung and venous ultrasound of the lower limbs. In normal A profile, plus deep venous thrombosis indicates the pulmonary embolism with 81% sensitivity and 99% specificity. The lung ultrasound is performed to see the presence of lung sliding, and DVT screening will be done to rule out the deep venous thrombus in the common femoral vein or popliteal vein using a linear high frequency probe. Okay, but if you look the thrombus like this in this image of the right side, then definitely you should not compress because it can dislodge the thrombus and can cause pulmonary embolism even if the patient doesn't have that. Okay, so sometimes you have to do a Doppler study over the vein, okay, and keep the angle 0 degree, and in this condition you get off flow, okay, and then you squeeze the leg veins, so you will get augmentation of the flow like this. So if you get the augmentation of the flow like this, means that the whole system is patent. If you don't get the augmentation of the flow after compressing or squeezing the leg calf muscles of the leg, then definitely there is chances of thrombosis between the popliteal vein and common femoral vein. Now we have to talk about the third common cause of obstructive shock, and that is tension pneumothorax. So the tension pneumothorax, to find out the tension pneumothorax, linear probe is placed at the anterior lung area. If lung sliding is present, pneumothorax can be ruled out. If lung sliding is absent with multiple A lines, okay, the profile is termed as the A dash profile of the blue protocol, which suggests the pneumothorax. In the presence of a pneumothorax, the visceral and parietal pleural spaces are separated like this. Okay, and where they are not separated, they are, that is called lung point. Okay, so the point at which these two surfaces meet is known as lung point here. Okay, lung point is a sensitive and specific for the pneumothorax, very specific or pathognomic of the pneumothorax. You should be able to find it. Okay, so here you can see there is a proper lung. Okay, that is called seashore sign. Okay, but if you look at like this, if there is a barcode sign like this, then definitely that this is the pneumothorax. Okay, and that is your lung point, right side of the picture. Upper right side picture is of lung point, where half of the image is she's showing the barcode sign like this. Okay, and half of the image is showing the seashore sign. So both seashore and barcode sign will be visible in the same scan view. After ruling out the obstructive shock, now next step in the FALS protocol is to rule out the cardiogenic shock. Look at the lung using a cardiac probe. V lines and lung rockets may be seen. If in the blue protocol, detection of an interstitial syndrome along with the normal lung sliding is defined as the B profile, and it is largely equivalent in the diagnosis of acute hemodynamic pulmonary edema with a 97% sensitivity and 95% specificity. Use a cardiac probe for this purpose. Now, there are 7 criteria for identification of B lines on the lung ultrasound. The B lines are comet tail vertical artifacts like this, arising from the pleural line and moving in concert with the lung sliding. Okay, so they will be moving. And it does not fade away, descends up to the whole depth of the screen, that is edge of the screen, and it is well defined like a laser beam. Can you see over here the well defined laser beam? And it is hyperechoic like the plural line. So this is the plural line, and these B lines are hyperechoic over here and obliterates the A line. Lines are not visible over here. And all these criteria make it always possible to recognize the B lines from other comet tail artifacts like E lines or Z lines. So the DDs of B lines are E lines and Z lines. Multiple B lines are called lung rockets. You can see in the right image over here, there are multiple B lines, lung rockets, and indicating the interstitial syndrome. Looking at the four-chamber view would show the poor LV functions and suggestive of the cardiogenic shock. After ruling out the distributive and cardiogenic shock, now third step in the pulse protocol is to look for hypovolemic shock. At this point of time, fluid therapy is commenced. Now the patient will have the normal lung, that is A profile, and there will be improvement of the circulatory function after fluid therapy if the patient has hypovolemia. So always remember that hypovolemic shock resolves under the fluid therapy. Now the last step is to look for the distributive shock. In this step, after fluid administration, the hemodynamics does not change much and a state of fluid overload in the tissues develops. This happens in the lungs too. Eventually, lung rockets appear. The change from A lines to B lines under the fluid therapy occurs at this step called pulse endpoint. Fluid therapy is discontinued. The fluid therapy is now judged optimally, and the classical therapy of septic shock, like vasopressors or antibiotics, is initiated. Most common cause of distributive shock is the septic shock. At this stage, for obvious, or concealed source of sepsis is looked for, and such as look at the lung for the consolidation or empyema. So in this image, you can see the collapsed lung and the syn pneumonic effusion, or it could be empyema. Or you have to look at the abdomen for the perforation peritonitis with the particulate ascites. So you can see the particulate ascites, and also if you keep your probe over either side of the diaphragm at the flaps point, then definitely you will get these kind of lines, A lines kind of thing. Okay, so this is the diaphragm, and below the diaphragm there will be these reflections, and these reflections are present means that there is air under diaphragm. So you can actually uh, observe the air under diaphragm with the ultrasound probe, but with not very high sensitivity especially. So now let's discuss few more uses of ultrasound in hemodynamic assessment beyond pulse. So ultrasound can be used to find out the bleeding as the cause of shock. An immediate extended fast that is focus assessment with the sonography in trauma examination, that is fast examination, can be done, which can see the bleeding in the peritoneum, pleura, and pelvis. To perform a fast examination, the operator uses a low frequency phased array or curvilinear probe images or the hepatorenal and sphenorenal space in the coronal axis. Ascites appears as a hypoechoic collection within the space. Okay, blood accumulates in these spaces as they are dependent in position when the patient is supine. The operator then images the pelvic area by placing the probe over the pelvic bone in the transverse scanning axis. The tomographic plane is angled into the pelvis to check for the pelvic fluid collection as well. The extended fast has also been described, which includes the evaluation for pneumothorax, intrapleural blood, that is hemothorax, and also hemopericardium. So that's all about the use of ultrasound in hemodynamics assessment of shock.